Hey everybody, Lonnie here. It's a great day here in Napa. Beautiful sunny outside. I hope the weather wherever you are when you're watching this is as nice as it is here right now. Anyway, I'm just kicking back in my office and trying to get some YouTube videos out, and trying to get on a roll here and see if I can get a lot of this stuff that I've been thinking about doing for a while onto YouTube and start sharing it with everybody. Today I want to talk about event frames. If you have a PI system, if you have a serious production system of any type, you most likely are generating event frames at this point. If not, you probably will be generating event frames. Event frames are super powerful, they're super useful, they help give us context to some of the data when we're looking at it. And I could talk about event frames on and on. But anyway, what I want to talk about today is how do you actually get to those event frames. One of the best ways that I know of doing that is using the AF SDK. Super powerful tools to query and retrieve and pull event frames that you have generated in your system, in your PI system, out and use it into the real world, which is where I like to play, things I like to do, visualizing data, web-based applications, those types of things. So we're going to go ahead and just learn the very basics, the very beginnings of how to do event frame queries using the AF SDK. So let's go ahead and get started and see how this goes. Okay, here is my my test application. I'll be sure to post the completed source code on GitHub. You can see the link in the show notes below. And we're going to just connect to my test PI system that I'm running up in Azure. I'll go ahead and try running this to see how it works. And pressing a key, once it completes the connection, it'll exit out and everything looks good. So we're connecting to the PI system. And in the test PI system, we do have some event frames. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to that really quick so we can just take a look at what event frames we have. I have some elements set up here, and I'm generating an event frame called low containment strength off of these relays. So low containment strength is just saying, hey, when containment strength equals 0, I'm going to generate event frame. If I come and look at my event frames, I can see if I've generated any in the last 10 minutes. And it looks like I have generated some events. There's at least 4 of them that are active right now that are being generated. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and try to get to these events using the AF SDK. There's 2 basic ways that we can search for event frames. One is using what they call search tokens. OSIsoft calls search tokens. And the other one is a search string. Part 1 here, we're going to use the tokens, and then in part 2, we're going to use the string, and we'll compare those two. One may work for you better than the other, depending on what you're trying to do. So let's go ahead and start with the search tokens. So we're going to go. We're going to use tokens, and the first thing I want to do is just create a list of these tokens. So these are called AF search tokens, and we'll just call this our token list, and we'll new that up. And then what I want to do is add a search token that is going to find that low containment strength event frame, and we're going to use the template capabilities off of that. So I'll show you what that looks like, and then I'll explain it to you. So we're going to add, since this is a list, we're just going to add it, and we're going to create a new AF search search token. And in that AF search token, when we initialize it, we need to pass in some things. One is we need to pass in the type of filter that we're going to use, and I'll show you what filters are a little bit more. But there's this idea of an AF search filter, And we have all these kinds of filters. These are different things that we can search off of the event frames. And here we want to use a template. We're gonna do a basic template search. And I want to use what's called AF search operator, and we're going to make that equal. Then we want to go ahead and we want to talk about, okay, what's the name of our template? And if I come back and we look at our remote desktop here, we can go into our library. We can open up our event frame templates, and here I have this low containment strength template that's created. There's no attributes. It's just generating basic start and end time. So we're going to go ahead and give that a name here. We're just using the template name. And definitely want to make sure you spell that correctly. If you don't, it will not work. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead. We have the search list. We're going to add the search token. And then this will basically go into the system and retrieve any event frame that matches this template. So how do we use this token list? We're just going to add one token to start with here, and then we'll add more, and we'll start narrowing it down into something that would probably make more sense. So here I'm going to do a token. I'm going to create a token search, and here we use what's called a AF event frame search class, and off of that we want to add our database, which is just our AF database, which I have up there initialized, and then we want to give this this search a name. I'm just going to call this our template search, and then we just pass in this token list, and the token list will go into this search class. In the search class, we can execute off of that and look at the results. So let's go ahead and get our results. And we're going to use our token search that we just created, and we're going to find event frames. And now we have some options when we find the event frames. So let's think about what we're doing here. We're gonna query the PI system. We're gonna look for all these events that are off of the containment strength. Now you can imagine there's if I was looking at a single template and I want to find all the events generated off of that, that could be, you know, thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions of events potentially over in a large PI system. So we're not going to be able to pull in and do a search and bring in all those events in one pass. That would not make any sense. So, you know, realize that as you're querying for event frames, you're going to have some kind of a paging system in place. And what we're saying with a paging system is we want to retrieve X number of events per call. So every time we go out and we pull in some events, we can define how many events that we want to pull in. It could be 10 events, it could be 100 events, it could be 1,000 events. It just depends on what you're doing and what kind of system you have and the capabilities of that system. But so that's the page size, and the other is the index. So what page are we actually looking for? Are we going to start with the very first events that are retrieved? And then page through those? Are we interested in another maybe 2 or 3 pages along? So we have to think about that. What I want to do in this example is we're just going to pull in the first page and the first X number of events. So let's go ahead and do that. So the start index would be 0, and we have an option of fully loading or not fully loading. The fully loading events are saying that, hey, if there's attributes that are associated with that, we're going to pull in all the snapshot values. We're going to pull in basically everything that has to do with that event. If we don't do a full load, it's going to have a more pared down version, so it could be faster performant that way. So we'll go ahead and not do a full load, and then the page size, we'll just pull in something very small, like 10 events. Okay, so this is going to set that search up. Now the search actually does not happen until we start trying to access events. The first time we ask for an event that we're going to do something with, that's when the search is triggered. It's going to go out, it's going to pull back 10 events. So let's go ahead and access the results here, and we'll see what happens. So I'm going to set up a for each loop, and we'll just do an item, and we're gonna go through our results, and we'll go ahead and print it out on to the console. I can type, and let's go ahead and let's look at our name of our event. I think that would be useful. And then let's go ahead and look at the start time, and whoops, let's go ahead and go to the end time. And the last thing, let's go ahead and look at our duration. And so this is going to iterate through these results. It's going to just keep continuing to go and pull in 10 events, 10 events, 10 events, and it'll just basically stay in a loop until there's no more events to retrieve. We don't want to retrieve all of those events in the setting in the PI system 10 at a time. That would be not a good thing to do. So I'm going to go ahead and set up this counter, and the counter is what we're going to use to track how many events that we've actually pulled in. When the counter hits the 10th of the once we pulled in 10, when it hits 10, then we're going to break out of this loop. So I'm going to say if our counter is greater than 9, then we want to break. Let's go ahead and run this to see what happens. Okay, so we can see that we retrieved some events. These are back in May, so these are pretty old events. They're not recent events, but you know, we're looking at since the first events were generated. And if I go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 events, so that was all done in a single call, which is exactly what we're looking for. If we go up and we say we want to do 20 events, we can add 10 more to this, and if we watch, we can see the events come in. So we can see the first 10, and then we should see the second 10 come in, and we might even see a pause between it. So you can see kind of like they came in blocks, 110 and 110. So it's important to understand that that these events, we're pulling in a 10 at a time. So if you access 11 events, then you're actually going to make a second call back to the server. So make sure that you're setting up your paging and your indexing and everything appropriately for what you want to do. It's a little subtle thing, but we want to make sure we do that. Okay, so let's go ahead and set this back to 9, and let's look at kind of let's look at some other things that we can do with our token list here. So let's say that we want to find an event, the events that are only associated with a specific element. That would be something that would be pretty common. So you have a certain asset and you're generating events off of that, and you just want to look at that specific asset. So if we come back to our remote desktop, we can see I have 4 elements here: T001, 2, 3, and 4. And let's say that I just want to look at events for the T001. So we can use another token here, and we're just going to add it to. We're just going to do the exact same thing, and we're going to do a search filter. And this time we want to use the event. We want to do a filter off of the event name, and we want to look at the search operator. We want to once again use equal, and now we want to put in some kind of a search criteria. And if we go back and look at our event names here, you can see that the event name that I'm generating has the name of the element, and then it has a timestamp of when it started and when it ends. If we look at some that have ended, let's see. Well, so you just have the looks like I'm just using the start time as part of the event. So we want to look at we're looking for ones that that are just associated with that T001. So let's go ahead, and because that's part of the name, we can go ahead and use that in a typical wildcard search. T001 and anything that's else, as long as it has T001 in it, we want to find that. So if we if we go ahead and we try this, we can see we should only hopefully see events coming off of T001. And you can see now we have the 10 events that are just coming from that, that are associated with that element, which is awesome. All right, so let's just run through this real quick to recap what's happening here. We're creating this search token list off of AF search token, and then we're adding these tokens. These tokens have a filter and an operator, and then we have usually some kind of a value associated with that. It could be equals. There's all kinds of different filters and operators that we can combine. These tokens are put together in a list. This list then is loaded into an AF event frame search object. We're creating an instance of that, and then we're executing this object into the results list, and this list is returning an enumeration of event frames, and those event frames we're using this paging and indexing values to figure out how we want to actually retrieve those event frames and load them in, and then we're just printing out, or we're writing out some of the items for the event with this console write line. Okay, so that is great. Let's go ahead and look at one last thing. I want to come back here and I want to go to my AF SDK reference in PI System Explorer, and I want to just point you to some of the documentation and where you can find more information out about what capabilities are around search. So if you look under what's new, there's a search overview. The search overview is the place that I'd recommend you start when you're diving into figuring out how you can do search. Now, the really cool thing about search is not only does it work with event frames, but it works with virtually any type of object in AF. Specifically, it works with elements. Elements are very very common to want to search for different types of elements that meet different criteria. So if we look at the event frame search here, there's it tells you all the different things that can happen, things you can do with it. There's some sample code here, but I think what also is interesting is if we look at the search filters, you can see what kind of filters are available, and we're looking at event frame search, and then it tells you all the different types of filters that you can use, and it also, there's the operators which go through, tell you how the operators work, and explains different ways that you set up your operations. So the other thing that's important to kind of note when you're working with these searches around tokens is the tokens are ANDed together. And so it's going to be, you're only going to retrieve event frames that meet all the criteria of whatever it is that your search fields are around. Okay, that is concludes part 1. So I hope that you see that accessing event frames using the AF SDK is not all that difficult, and it just requires you to understand the concepts around tokens, searching, search filters, and things like that. Part 2, we're going to dive into how to search strings work, and we'll just continue that. And if you like this video, if you find this helpful, please press the little like button here, and be sure to subscribe to my channel if this is valuable information for you, because I will be putting out more videos on a more regular basis going forward here, so you get notifications of when those come up. And I'll be doing part 2 on event frames to show you how the strings work in the very near future. So my name is Lonnie. Thanks again for watching, and I hope this was beneficial, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.